Welcome everyone to Fuzz TV. I am Peter, that is Tara, and we are going to talk about Star Trek Strange New World Season 1, Episode 7. It is called the Serene Squall. So full spoilers for the episode, as always. So, this episode has a bit of a siege situation. I have seen many a Star Trek episode that has a little bit of Die Hard in it, and it's actually Nurse Chapel, of all people, who gets to be a little John McClane for a little bit in this. Not for too long, unfortunately. I could have done with some more
walk a barefoot through some glass.
I buy that she's tough enough for it.
Oh yeah, totally.
I buy it. So but yeah, so there's a lot of Spock focus in this. The T'Pring relationship comes back up. We have a doozy of an ending that I can't wait to talk about. But we do tease the chapel and Spock stuff. I think we have to accept now, 7 episodes in, that Hemmer is kind of like O'Brien level as far as like where he is on the cast.
It's pretty disappointing.
Yeah, O'Brien in Next Gen, by the way, not O'Brien in Deep Space Nine. just for the record, because it doesn't make sense if it's Deep Space Nine. But yeah, and then like Brother Kirk, he's like what's lower than like Keiko, maybe Keiko.
Keiko. I suppose.
No, I'm suggesting that they're destined to be married, right? No, just going down the pecking order.
Yeoman Rand.
Okay, yeah. That's an interesting flip, I suppose, if you compare it to the original series. The Kirk in this is the Yeoman. So it's a good swap. So there's a bit of a twist halfway through this episode, where there's a character who's there as like they call it a counselor, and she's like an ex-Starfleet. I don't know if officer is necessarily the right word, but she was in Starfleet. And halfway through, it turns out she's actually the villain, and it's her pirate ship, and this has all been a trap. There's these colonist ships that seem to have been destroyed, but maybe they've kidnapped some of them, and they've went out of Federation space. And Pike, because it's going to take too long to get the signal to like get an okay from Starfleet, he's like, look, we're not waiting for a signal for 2 days. If there's a chance we can save some people. So they go in to the other quadrant, and sure enough, it's a trap. There's a laser net, there's other things going on, and we get a bit of a situation where Pike and a lot of the crew are kidnapped by the pirates, whilst the pirates have got control of the ship. And then the big swerve is that the counselor, her real name is Angel, and she is the captain of the pirate ship. And the whole thing's a ruse to free a Vulcan prisoner, because as we've discovered, the last episode T'Pring was on, is T'Pring actually works with rehabilitating Vulcan's prisoners, and so that's how it kind of ties back into her at the end, because it opens with T'Pring like talking to Spock, and there's just a little bit of that, and then at the end it kind of comes back round, and okay, that's why we reminded of that, because at the end we're going to come back round, and it's going to be about this is leverage to get T'Pring to do something, because now she has Spock prisoner and at gunpoint. So that's the gist of it. How did you feel about the Serene Squall?
This might be my least favorite of the episodes, but I'm not saying it's bad.
I actually agree with you. I
actually found that a lot of the comedy that they were going for didn't really work for me. Although I did laugh a lot hysterically at the end. But
I did too. Yeah, we'll get to that. Well, I want to save that. That's its own special segment.
Right. But I found a lot of it to be pretty predictable, and some of the like romance stuff, although I've been enjoying it, felt a little cringy to me in this episode. And there was some extra Pike stuff where he was just being I don't know, they were just so jokey the whole time, and I didn't
it felt it felt a little off for the situation they were in, that he was so jovial in the prison cell. But do you know what, I enjoyed Captain Pike, or Dad Pike, doing the pirate impression, and like
at the end,
yeah, and Una just being like, stop that, sir. And I feel like Ortega's, I think she enjoyed it. She wasn't going to speak up and say it, but it looked like she was enjoying it.
Yeah. You could tell he's been holding it back the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
It was kind of a cute moment.
He's having a good time. Because he's a lot of, it's actually quite funny, because you think he's too nice to everyone, and the start of the episode is that he's got a nickname of being the Boy Scout, or a reputation for being the Boy Scout in Starfleet, and he's like shocked to hear this. He's like, when did this happen? And it was like, it's in your record. And then that's almost what like convinces him, or like gives him the motivation to go on the away mission that ends up getting him trapped with everyone else, because he wants to prove that he's a bad boy. He's like, no, I'm not a Boy Scout. I'm going to win it. I'm doing a Kirk. I'm going on the mission.
Who do you think you are here, Sam Kirk?
So I mean, that was pretty funny. I like that. I will say this though, like for as much as I do think this is the weakest episode, there are still some things I like in it. Sure. And I will say that I did feel really positive about the show at the start of the episode, and that may sound like a backhanded thing, but I actually mean this in a really good way, in that when the episode started, and there's that first scene where was not the first scene, but it's when Spock's with Chapel and they're walking down the hall, and she's like, look, you need some advice, it sounds like your girlfriend's mad at you, and they get talking, right? And this is something they've established, that they kind of have this friendship. It's a little bit awkward because Chapel's got the hots for him, but you know, we're dealing with it. As this scene was playing out, I was just sort of thinking, you know, I'm actually really enjoying, like, I'm excited to see these characters, I'm excited to see this interaction. I'm at a point with this show now where I like these versions of these characters that I'm enjoying, and I'm just happy to be in another episode. So even though the episode went on to be, I think, objectively the weakest episode of the show so far, after 6 good ones, and it's not this is a bad one, I would say it's just like a...
No, I wouldn't say that.
It's weaker. But I would say that after 6 good ones, and because I now have this like feeling of expectation going into it, I felt uplifted even though the episode itself was not as good as any of the other episodes.
Well, that's what happens when you like a cast, right? Is that even the okay episodes of Next Generation, you still can rewatch them because you're like, but I like these characters, so I want to see them go through this. The
vast majority, there is 1 or 2 that are painful, but only 1 or 2, just 1 or 2. There's that we
one we can
can
discuss later.
There's that one with Mama Troy taking Worf into the mud bath or whatever it is in the holodeck.
Alexander.
Oh, that episode. Oh,
yeah, that one is kind of rough.
Oh yeah, it's a terrible one. Anyway, so it starts off with T'Pring calling Spock, and she wants to try and show that she's making an effort to appeal to his humans and understand his human side and not ignore it. Mm-hmm. And it's actually kind of a sweet thing. But she's sort of looking at it from a sexual point of view. So she's like, Spock, I've been studying human sexuality. And she like starts bringing... And
he spits out his wine.
Yeah. For a split second, I thought, what, she been on Pornhub? What's she doing?
She accidentally saw his search history.
Well, I think that's
so you're into this, or?
Do you know what? I actually think that's what made it funny to me, is that while Spock is obviously dealing with his human side and he's like maybe realizing that it's an important part of him, I actually did believe him when he like is genuinely like, I'm not familiar with any of these books about human sex, because they're all like studies, right? It's all these books that are talking about sex rather than, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
I actually totally believe that when he's been talking about exploring his human side, I don't think he's been meaning sexually. I think he's been talking about just, you know, other things,
emotions and stuff like that.
Yeah. But she's reading it as, we should, as humans say, spice things up. And
I mean, they're just getting into their relationship, aren't they? Like,
well, we know they've already had sex, and I'm just like, what like, I mean, what is Vulcan sex? Because it still looked like sex, you know, when they were getting up out the bed afterwards, and you know the bed sheets around them and stuff. I'm like, this. It still looks like they did more or less the same thing.
The Star Trek hasn't explored it too much. There's a name for it, but that's about it.
Yeah, I did get a chuckle there, and this is maybe more on me than it is the show. But later on, when they make up after she comes back on the ship, and she's like, because obviously as part of the ruse, they like null their engagement effectively, right? Mm-hmm. And there's like, well, we should do a rebonding ceremony. We should get re-engaged. And Spock, you know, either before or after the kiss, says, "Yes, this is logical." And it just has this like, is this how they initiate sex too? Like, just like she's like, "Do you want to have sex?" And he's just kind of like, this is logical, yes, let's proceed with the sex. I don't know, there was something really funny to me about him agreeing and saying it's logical, like, yes, I'm in the mood now for sex, so therefore it is logical. And that's kind of how, I mean, it wasn't sex in the scene, but it was, you know, equivalent in the sense that it was like a romantic attachment moment. It's like, this is logical, yes, we should do this.
We know what they're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the point I'm saying is that when he says this is logical in the moment, what he's really saying, oh God, yes, I love you, baby, never leave me again. Like, that's effectively what he's saying.
In his own Vulcan way.
Yes.
If the universal translator was going, that's what we would have heard.
Yes. Please take me back, baby. I will crawl and beg forgiveness for years. Something like that. Anyway, so I think the thing I didn't like too much about this episode, but by and large, I think it actually comes down to the guest star, who I don't think is that great. Yeah,
I didn't think she was that great either.
And Joe was weird about it is that something felt off about her early on, and obviously that makes sense when you realise that it's all a ruse and she's a villain. But I actually thought she was worse when she became just the villain than she was beforehand.
Yeah.
She got too hammy. She was too cartoony, comic booky villain when she actually turned.
Yeah, and I mean, you didn't really trust her from the beginning, and it wasn't just the face tattoo of a snake. It was also just like, I don't know, they kept showing that there were other sides to her. You know, like she would listen to this really loud music in her quarters during this crisis moment and stuff like that.
Yeah, she she came back in to speak to Spock at one point, and she changed into like this all black skin tight outfit, and it was like such a drastic change from anything she'd been wearing beforehand. It kind of felt like, at the very least, I thought, are you trying to seduce Spock? Is that what this is going? Yeah,
that was definitely being put across. I think that was also supposed to be like, oh, she's just into him. That's why.
Yeah,
she's hanging around him so much.
She's into Vulcans there, because she is in love. I mean, she does have, she's in love with a Vulcan. Just not this one.
This one.
More than that later. Yeah. I just something, and obviously she has a lot of screen time because there's a lot of stuff within the first half when she's supposed to be this good character, and she's talking about her backstory, and then obviously when she becomes the villain, she's the one doing the evil monologues, and she's like, "No, I'm going to get my husband out of Vulcan prison to Pring. You're going to hand him over," which leads to Spock basically trying to like break off the marriage so that T'Pring doesn't have to make this choice, because
there's some sort of loyalty thing to where Vulcans will be, if she doesn't try to save her fiance, then I guess there's some sort of dishonor for the family if that happens. So it's some sort of bond that they make means that she does have to try to save him just for reputation's sake.
Yeah, but giving up the prisoner would be criminal and also kill her career. So, she's kind of pulled between. So Spock's trying to give her an easy out by saying, "No, I've been cheating on you with Nurse Chapel." And he can't, although he can't get quite, he's clearly going to say that, but he can't quite get it out because he's Spock and he's shit at lying. So Nurse Chapel steps in and sort of finishes the lie off and says most of it. And then to prove it, he kisses her, and
passionately.
Yes. Obviously, what you're supposed to feel here is like, oh, this is bittersweet because Nurse Chapel is probably really enjoying this, and it's like she's clearly got feelings for him.
Well, even the stuff at the end suggests that he kind of enjoyed it too. That he is also has some sort of feelings for her.
Yeah, it was between, again, much like him saying it's logical. He didn't say it in words, but you could sort of tell when he was saying no. This proved there was no feelings between us. It was him saying, "Yeah, I totally, I totally felt something," So.
Yeah, I think it's also like even T'Pring's like, "Oh, you couldn't fake that kind of passion, but like you did it for the lie. You were so committed to the lie." Which is kind of like super cheesy, but whatever. This whole setup, I think, is kind of cheesy to get these two characters to
forced.
Kiss.
Yeah.
But in any case, like for the sake of the relationship that's happening here, that moment, and also Spock. I guess what was the line that he used? There was something in when he was talking with Nurse Chapel at the end. Oh, and they both like sort of addressed each other professionally after that, where it's just like, we've gone too far with our feelings and now we have to take it back to before our close friendship. She calls him Mr. Spock. He calls her Nurse Chapel instead of like first names. Yeah,
they're reaffirming the professionalism to sort of, but yeah. I mean, I don't hate the idea that T'Pring kind of associates, there was passion in that kiss, because the only reason you could lie like that is because of your human side, which is why the conversation afterwards with Chapel reveals that, because then Chapel says, "No, you're crap at lying, which is why I stepped in." And that's kind of like to tell the audience, yeah, T'Pring's wrong. He's actually really bad at lying. So if there was passion there, it's because there was passion, and not because he was faking it. So
yeah.
So it's not badly written in that sense. I think I'd be okay with the convolution to get to the kiss if I enjoyed the villain more. If I was enjoying that side of it, but because I wasn't really enjoying her performance, this was kind of like, oh, this is the part I'm supposed to love, and like it's okay, but you know, it's a bit.
I think she's just too much of she's just a little too wooden in order to get away with the hamminess, you know? I think you should have gotten someone who was more of a clown.
Yeah, there was something about it I just didn't really believe. And the sad part is that she gets away at the end, and that means that she's going to show up again. So we're going to have to deal with her at least one more time.
Probably.
Yeah, especially since what's set up at the end and who she's trying to get back. I assume that's when she'll come back into it, is when we get to that stuff. So, yeah, so Spock, so there's the moment where it clicks, because Spock turns around and just sort of casually says, yes, this is the funny thing, he says... He doesn't say my father had a bastard child. He says Sarek had a bastard child, and then someone has to actually say, "Wait, Sarek's your father too?" He's like, "Yes, that's correct."
I thought that was interesting that she knew that Sarek was his father, because in was it like the Babel episode of the original series when we first meet Sarek, nobody knows that that's Spock's dad.
So you think this is maybe a slight inconsistency that people know this?
Yeah, because she sort of just knew it in passing. It seemed like they didn't have a discussion about it.
This is, as far as the consistencies go, this is, I'd say, a slightly lesser evil, I suppose.
Yeah, it's there to remind the audience in case, you know, this is your first time watching. But this is your first Star Trek series, I guess. He
mentions Sarek having a bastard child, and I started laughing because I immediately said, oh no, they're going here. They're going here. And it's funny because I'm sure at some point, if not in this show, probably at some point in Discovery, whether it was in the first couple of seasons with Connor, whether it was you in the last season and a half, whatever it was, I'm sure at some point I said, it's kind of weird we're dealing with Spock's sister, and they've never mentioned his brother that we know from Star Trek V, the Final Frontier. So this ends, and it builds up, and it's like, yes, the name she was using, like Werner or whatever that she was saying before, it's like, yeah, that was a pseudonym. The real name is Sybok, and that's the big cliffhanger.
Do we even get the name?
He says Sybok, yeah, he says Sybok.
He does say Sybok, okay.
He says Sybok, we see him from behind, we don't see his face, and it, you know, cuts to black.
I guess I was laughing, I didn't hear it.
You were laughing too hard.
I knew fairly early on that they were talking about Sybok. Because even when, you know, T'Pring was talking about what she did for a living last time we saw her, I was thinking, oh, kind of like Sybok and his people. Or Enterprise has a whole episode, a few episode arc about like Vulcans who don't accept Kolinar and are, you know, more in depth with or in tune with their emotions, and, you know, thinks that enhances their Vulcanness or whatever. So. But the moment that Spock says, I know who it is, before he even like starts talking about it, I'm like, oh my God.
Sybok.
It has to be Sybok.
I can't believe I can't believe they're going to the Sybok well.
Why wouldn't you just tap that well though, right? You already got Spock, and it's the best movie.
You know, speaking of inconsistencies with original series, in terms of if you're going to try and connect them in your head, right? As I would say that, and this is something that I'm okay with, because for two reasons. One, I've basically, to me, even though they're going to keep telling me it's not, this is a separate timeline now. We're doing our own thing, and even though it's technically supposed to tie up to the original series, I'm never going to really take it as tying into the original 60s show, right? It's just this new thing now, and that's fine. But one of the things that probably won't line up too well is where Spock is. In terms of when you think of him at the start of the original series, because we're doing plots with Spock, and Spock's dealing with this push and pull of his human side and his Vulcan side, like to have story with Spock, there's no way in hell he is going to be reset to being like the cold Vulcan that he is at the start of the original series before he starts growing with Kirk and that at the end of the show, unless they like put him through something traumatic right at the end to like make him reset or something like that. You know, like we can't just not have him evolve.
Maybe Pike's accident.
Maybe that makes him cold again. But I'm saying I'm okay with this because one, we have to do character stuff with them. It would be stupid not to, and two, just accept that things aren't going to line up and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep. He said he's looking forward to his Kulinar, which we get to see in the motion picture film, which we reviewed recently.
Yeah, and he backs out, or he's told to back out.
Mm-hmm.
Is it him that says no, I'm not going to do it, or is it the two old ladies that say no, you're not ready for this?
Yeah, they don't. She doesn't put the necklace on him.
Yeah. So it's the old ladies who say no, you're.
But he stops it also.
Yes.
Yeah, he stops it. I think because he hears, or he senses V'ger.
Yeah, senses V'ger, and he's like, it's logical.
I watched that movie 3 times this year, and I still can't quite remember, so I should probably watch it again.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, the thing with Cybok is that in the movie, and Tara's going to disagree with this, but Voyage. I keep saying Search for Spock. I keep trying to say that for some reason. Voyage Home, Star Trek 5. That's 4.
Final Frontier.
Do you know what the problem is? It's because Final Frontier is just a phrase that's used all the time in every Star Trek. It's actually confusing my brain trying to just say the Final Frontier as if Star Trek 5. I'll just say 5.
The Search for Cybok.
Star Trek 5. That movie's not good.
God.
And Cybok in that movie is not that good. So
what?
So they have got complete carte blanche to do whatever the hell they want here, pretty as far as I'm concerned. The only thing they need to do is they've set up he's a bad guy, he's a villainous Vulcan, that's interesting. Go nuts with it. I'm okay with it. The name Cybok's still stupid though. Cybok's a Mortal Kombat character. I think.
Do you think Spock's gonna have to wear some rocket boots to like get to his stepbrother?
Maybe. A couple of Spock moments we should probably I mean, I don't know if there's much to say on them, but I did want to point them out. Is one, I enjoy him having to like go on his hunch, like because it's like they have to they're in this like net and it's like okay, it's originating from one particular little asteroid. We have to hit the right one, otherwise it'll start a chain reaction that blows everything up. But if you hit the right one, it'll just turn it all off. And he just kind of has to like do a rough guess. And Peck says, "Use your gut, Spock," and he looks so uncomfortable. I thought it was a good moment. But then it works, which kind of is like, maybe your gut's real then. That means you're human. That means you got some human in you.
Gut is
real. So I like
as opposed to your Vulcan gut.
And Joe, I really liked about the siege moment where all the pirates are coming on board the ship is I actually relate the action here because this show intentionally doesn't go too flashy with it, and I actually really like that Spock just immediately feels like a badass because he just starts gripping like pirates left and right.
Man, he threw somebody across the bridge. I'm like, dang, Spock's strong.
It was good. Well, it comes back to something me and Cara have talked about in Next Generation is that every so often they'll remind you that Data has super strength and he can like pick up something heavy or whatever, and if there's like some sort of combat, you can basically send him in like he's the Terminator and he'll handle it with ease. But they don't really show it too often, and part of it's because, well, it's a show from the late 80s and early 90s, the budget only can allow for so much. I kind of like here that Spock's kind of a similar vibe here, where, okay, we get to see it a bit more now, but it's still very simple, and it's not too flashy. It's just very quick, move to the side, pinch, move to the pinch. Like, it's just, as quickly and as efficiently as possible, because that's what a logical Vulcan would do.
Yeah.
So, I like that.
Yep. No, I agree. I mean, it should... honestly, like, Data should have been head of security.
He probably
you can
should
just
have
send
been.
him into everything.
It's funny, actually, the episode that I just watched, he technically was head of security. No, he wasn't. No, he was head of engine. No. What was it? He was first officer for like 3 hours. That's what it was.
Oh, it's Jellicoe?
Yeah, they put on the red top for a little bit. I won't get too into it, just in case people want to go back and watch it and they've not seen the show yet, but it was like
Captain Ronnie Cox.
Captain Ronnie Cox.
Awesome.
Yes, of RoboCop fame. Yes.
And
Total Recall. Oh yeah, I forgot. Yes, he's technically...
He has a non-speaking role in Deep Blue Sea, where he's basically a potted plant.
Which we only noticed when we watched it for the movie podcast we do, the Atomic Cinema Experiment, or sci-fi movie podcast. Go get it on Male Fuzz Movies or your local podcast feed, whatever you want. But we did it for the show, like, last year? Or maybe even 2 years ago now. But we just like, was that Ronnie Cox sitting there?
How does time work? I don't know. Uncredited.
Yeah, that was so weird. But I was sure, it was definitely, I mean, obviously he's a little bit older because it was a good, about a decade after whatever else I'd seen him in. But funny.
Anyway, different show.
Yeah, different show. yeah, so Chapel gets to be a badass. She gets to sort of like show that she's very capable in a fight, and takes out a bunch of the pirates, and is kind of, like I say, doing a bit of a Die Hard thing. I could have done me more of that. It's actually probably the least amount of characters in an episode in terms of having them, because there's no Uhura in this episode. This is probably the first episode without her.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't remember seeing her.
Yeah, there's no Hammer, and we've not had a lot of Hammer.
It's Hammer time. Come on.
Dun, 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 dun.
Everybody wants this, right? Like, everybody wants more Hammer.
Is it inappropriate if I say can't see this at the end of that? Because he's blind?
Oh, I get it.
Like, I don't feel bad for the character being blind, but the actor's actually blind, so I feel like, oh, maybe this is a bit weird for me to actually make a joke about that, but...
I don't know.
It popped out of my head because...
He just has a different perspective.
Yeah. Because can't touch this, and I thought, well, you can...
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So you don't see a lot of the other characters. Pike cooks for the pirates at one point, and basically the running gag in this section is because this is definitely the B plot, but the plot here is that one of the tactics that him and Una have used in the past is to incite mutiny amongst like the enemy by like getting them to turn on like their leader, which apparently works every time.
They called it Alpha Braga 3 or something. The tactic.
I assume that's because that's when they first used it, was there.
Yeah, but also Braga, I assume, is like Brandon Braga, like the producer of all the other Star Trek shows.
Oh, sure, yeah, it'll be the DC comics do that. See if you read like a DC comic book, especially a Batman comic, like every street or university or like anything like that is always named after like a writer or an artist who used to do Batman. It's always the case. So
yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. And this like this stuff was just so like see when he's like talking to like the big like Irish alien, and he's like sort of tricking him and saying, nah, let me like make dinner for everyone so they can have some proper food.
Yeah, it was just too much Pike stuff.
I don't have a problem with the Pike stuff. It was just a bit too light and fluffy, like where they never really felt like there was any predicament. You know, it never really felt like they were in danger, even though technically they were in cells and they were kidnapped and all the rest of it.
Yeah, he and Una were just not just confident, but like having a good time, it seems, during this whole thing, which is just a little bit weird. I don't know. Yeah,
and Lan's there, but doesn't have too much to do. She got a couple of lines. Ortega's has a couple of lines, as she always does, but I did, it was nice when they sort of popped back up and they'd taken control of the ship, and they're on this other bridge and things like that. But yeah, not too much to say about the B plot in this one necessarily.
I mean, you knew that Pike was in distress because his hair was flat, and it was weird.
It was very strange. Yes. Yeah. So.
I don't really have too much to say about the B plot either. Like, no, I guess it's suitable. I'm sure people liked it.
I think it's, I think when I pulled up IMDb, I noticed this had the lowest rating, and not by a huge amount, but it's at a 7.5, which is, most of them are hovering between a 7.9, like an 8.2, right? And that seems like a very fair average that it's kind of worked out as. IMDb averages for things aren't always necessarily reliable because you do get people review bombing certain things. But,
yeah, people tend to not like new Trek. It's popular not to do.
Well, this one rates better than the other ones do. And it is, I mean, I don't know if they deserved quite the low rating some of them get, but I mean, this one is the best of the bunch, I would say. Without saying anything.
Yeah, I would say so too.
Yeah. I'm not dissing the other ones, right? I mean, I will if you want me to.
I mean, it's been consistently good.
But I am genuinely enjoying, and I would go as far to say I am looking forward to the next episode, like when I'm going to watch it.
I did watch the trailer for it. It looks weird.
Oh, I've not seen the trailer for the next one, but what I mean is that every week now I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah.
I'm excited to watch new Star Trek, and that's a nice feeling. And me and Cara just started Deep Space Nine. It's not, the first review's not up yet because we're a little bit ahead of the schedule, but so we've been doing the original series and Next Gen. We're on season 6 of Next Gen, and we're just a couple of episodes away from starting Deep Space Nine, and we'll be doing it in the original air date order, so we'll be bouncing between them as they originally aired. So if that's of interest,
cool.
Go check out those.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, so
that's my favorite series.
There's a bit of plugging for you because we're done. I think we're done with this one.
I think so too.
Yeah. It's okay. Like I like some of the character stuff with Spock. It's poking at some of the Chapel stuff is fun because I do like Nurse Chapel in this show. But yeah, the guest
We've
star.
gotten so much D'Pring. Also, I wasn't expecting her to be so prominent in like so many episodes.
Do you know,
she's been 3 out of the 7.
I almost thought that when they did the whole ruse, and it's like, oh, we're going to end this, like, annul this engagement right now. I almost thought this was her being written off the show. I thought this was going to be a permanent thing. I was surprised when she walked back on, and it's like, oh, we could just do it again. I was like, oh, okay, I suppose that makes sense, I guess. But for some reason, because you're Vulcan, I assumed this was like, no, this is it now. It's etched in stone. You can never go back together again.
I mean, maybe they're setting up that Spock really does betray her at some point with Chapel, and that's why she goes him to Kirk when they were supposed to get married.
Maybe.
Maybe they are going to set up that, like, yeah, there's betrayal, and that's why she has this revenge. I'm going to let you die now. Let your best friend kill you. As is the logical way.
That could happen. That could happen. They were hyping up season 2 this week. I saw there was some
season 2 for this show.
Yeah, because it was already renewed ages ago. They renewed it in advance.
Didn't they renew it for like 2 and 3 at the same time?
I don't know.
Maybe I just dreamt that.
I don't think this is not like a scientific answer, but I don't think so, because usually IMDb will create a season page for all the ones that are renewed, and there's a season 2 page, but there's not a season 3 page. So I'm going to assume that there isn't, but okay. I could be wrong.
They definitely renewed it before the first episode aired.
Oh yeah,
they were that confident.
Yeah, it was way before then. Which I'm pleased, because it's nice to know in advance that it's probably going to keep going, and it's probably safe because they seem to like their Trek shows on Paramount Plus.
Oh yeah.
They probably drive viewership on that more than anything else. And I know Yellowstone and all of its spin-offs are big, but I imagine the audience that's tuning in for Yellowstone and the audience that's tuning in for Star Trek are probably very separate.
Yeah.
So if they want to keep all the nerds,
and the NCIS audience is somewhere else over there.
They don't know how to sign up for streaming services. Come on now.
Actually, I just set it up I just gave my friend's parents my Paramount Plus because they've been trying to get I think Jag or something. It's the only place it's streaming. Some other Belisario show.
Oh dear. Old people love their repetitive crime shows, don't they?
Yeah, Belisario is great. Don't knock it.
I'll just, there's a very particular taste TV that I just can't get on board with, and that's one of them. But to each their own. Knock yourselves out. Not from me. But yeah, there you go. Serene Squall, episode 7. So we only have 3 left of the season.
That's crazy, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, just ran very quick.
Only 10.
That is more normal, actually. I mean, Discovery started at a time when 13 was more normal because that's what Netflix were doing at the time. But Netflix shifted to, they shifted to 10, and then Netflix have actually most shows on Netflix are 8 now. So Paramount and some of the others are keeping it 10 is actually, longer than what Netflix are doing. So
even HBO's had some like 9 episode runs for a season. Like, what is this, 9?
Yeah,
it's a weird number. I don't like it.
Yeah, HBO's been all over the place because I've seen them with 8s, 10s. They still occasionally do a 13 if that's right for the show, but
hey, yeah, I like that answer anyway. If it's right for the show, then that's the number you should do. Why not?
For sure.
TV's different now. Do whatever is best for the show. Yeah, I don't know what they're setting up here with Cybok, but I guess so. Do we still expect to see the Gorn by the end of the season?
I do. I suspect that we're going to have an episode focused on the Gorn and an episode focused on Cybok. Although that said, it wouldn't shock me if Cybok is left till next season.
Yeah,
it wouldn't shock me.
Maybe.
In fact,
we still have a character reveal that was leaked before the show started.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm losing my voice. That is, I expect that will be the last episode.
That said, though, I could also see Cybok being like a B plot in like the final episode, and then at the end of the episode, the cliffhanger is like him getting out of prison, and like, it's like, oh, he's on the list for season 2 kind of thing.
He's dangerous.
I think Cybot is the character in Mortal Kombat I was comparing him to. It's like Noob Cybot or something like that, yeah. Yeah, not Cybot. Anyway, that's been Strange New Worlds for the week. Hopefully you enjoyed these rambles. Let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments. You can, of course, support everything by hitting the super thanks button below the video, or go over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and supporting us over there for as little as $1 per month. And of course, yes, there's other Trek shows being reviewed. Me and Tara are kind of the modern Trek team. We did Picard, where we had been doing Discovery for the last season and a half. And here, of course, we're doing Strange New Worlds, but me and Connor been working through classic Trek, and as we said, just about to start Deep Space Nine and bouncing around that in next gen. So you can go find all those reviews, all in some handy playlists. There's a lot of them now. A lot of them. So thank you very much.
We make the content for you guys.
Yeah. There's actually a dedicated Star Trek row on the homepage of the YouTube now. Like, there's like a section that says just Star Trek reviews, and it's just like all the playlists.
I mean, they've been pretty consistent. Yeah. So.
We started the original series in January of 2017. So that's how long those have been going.
Wow. Basically,
what I'm saying is, if you think we're like we might just stop randomly, or that if we're not committed, like. There's already been 5 years. This has been 5 years already, so...
Your 5-year mission is not complete.
More of a 10-year mission, at least.
At least. You guys got a couple more series to get through.
But yes, thank you very much for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek, and... that's something that... Logical... something.
Ponthar.
Ponthar, Cybot rules. No, it doesn't.
This is such a mess.